different claims to decide, what are all of them saying in one statement. Use evidence from research to determine whether or not what is being claimed is valid or not. So those are the kinds of things they're doing within English. So that's what we're trying to develop in the delivery of Common Core state standards, or more specific skills.
Now that sounds like critical thinking. It sounds like it's not just teaching facts or teaching to the test. It sounds like you're teaching, or you're endorsing the teaching approach, I guess is the way to say that, where a student not only learns the facts but learns how to use those facts.
Absolutely. It's a skills-based, not just a content-based instructional program. And that is something that Cambridge has actually been delivering throughout the world for over 150 years. So it was very interesting to us when we found out about the Common Core state standards being identified in the United States a few years ago, because most of our schools that have been working with us for a number of years in the United States heard about the Common Core and what was going to be required of them in the classroom, and then they went to workshops and found out more and came out of the workshops and said, oh, this is what Cambridge has been having us do for a long time now. This is really great. So we're very pleased that we're able to support those efforts here in the United States with something that we are already doing with schools all over the place.
There was something on the ABC News this morning about how there was a poll taken, and the U.S. students did poorer on exams than the students over in Asia and places like that. And I really think that's unfair, because every year they have that Brain Bowl that's held in New York City, and the American teams usually come out on top with that. How can they... what do they base their numbers on? Because I know a lot of students that have graduated from high school in our own county, and they've graduated with high honors.
Right. That's a great question. I believe that the focus of the report this morning was on a test that's administered called the PISA test, and that's out of an organization in Australia. And it's a international test, and it's actually taken by cohorts of students all over the world. As far as the Brain Bowl in New York City, I'm not as familiar with that, I do confess. Larry, I'm on your page now.
Oh, good. I'm not alone.
But I'm sure that we have outstanding students, and I know we have outstanding students in a lot of areas, and I'm not surprised by very high performance by U.S. students in something such as a Brain Bowl. So it's really a matter of a common test being taken by students in many different countries across the world that was being referenced this morning, which is a bit different than what was being referenced, I believe, about the Brain Bowl.
So let me let you in on my age, just so you know. Rob and I are both about the same age. We're both 58 and 59. So. Yeah. So that gives you an idea that our schooling was in the 60s. It sounds like this is what we had, though. And when my own son went to school, let's see, that would have been in, what, the 90s? I guess is when my own son went to school. It doesn't sound that different. What is different about this than what's been taught? And the other, I guess the other thing, if you could address, I'm not sure I understand why some people are opposed to this, especially now that you've explained it to me.
Those are great points, both of them, and I'd like to take the first point, if I may. I was probably in the same schoolroom that you guys were, although I was in Orlando at that time. And I will say that even as a former high school and college teacher myself, I tended to do what I did in the classroom, what I was subjected to, so to speak, and that is sitting there listening passively in my desk while the teacher told me what all I was supposed to know and be able to do. I think a different approach that they're trying to take now is to engage the student in a more active role as far as what it is that they're supposed to be learning. Instead of being told, this is the problem and this is how you solve it, they may be presented with the question of what are the problems around this particular issue, a child having to identify those particular problems, and then figuring out what they need to know in order to help solve it. Very different approach. So that may be a little bit different.
Okay, so why would that be? That's actually, okay, so that sounds like fortified teaching. That sounds like it's actually a better way, because in real life, when you're out of the classroom, I mean, you're often faced with, I know this and this, but I got to figure out that.
Exactly.
You know, so why would somebody be, what is the objection to this?
I'm going to be honest with you, Larry. I'm not an expert in the pros and cons that are being voiced by people all over. So I'd rather leave that question for you to address in another radio show, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah,
that's not my area of expertise, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I can talk to you about instructional strategy and what Cambridge is delivering, and an exciting new course that you mentioned we're doing a colloquium on, which is free next week. It's called Global Perspectives. We're actually trying to engage students in opportunities to select what are they interested in, what do they want to know about that's of global relevance, and then do some research and learn how to do all of these things as far as evaluating what people are saying about it out there, and then doing some research to determine whether that's a valid point of view or not, and then coming up with their own points of view and then presenting that information in an engaging way.
The event is in Orlando a week from today, right?
That is correct. It certainly is.
And where is it going to be?
It's going to be in SeaWorld, in the SeaWorld area, at the Renaissance Hotel right there at SeaWorld, and it's going to be from 8:30 to 2. And we are really excited about doing some modeling during that workshop. We're actually going to have some current teachers and students that have been through this from Florida schools demonstrating some of what this looks like, in addition to explaining what all of it is from an instructional standpoint.
Okay, so this is for teachers, and it's free, you said, right?
That's correct. It's for teachers and school administrators. Whoever would like to come is more than welcome. We just have a website they can go to in order to sign up for it, and then they're welcome to come. We'll feed them lunch.
And what's the website?
The website is www.cambridge, followed by G as in global, P as in perspectives, .org, O-R-G. So altogether, that's www.cambridgegp.org.
This is something that should be looked at by all of the school systems because each student has their own interests, they have their own way of learning, and sometimes those interests of the students are squelched, because I know even in our school system they wanted to cut band, they wanted to cut art, they wanted to cut chorus, but to me that's wrong, because each student should be able to be exposed to everything, and then they can decide what they like and what they don't like. And when they find something they like, they're going to learn, because music, you've got to do math, you've got to count, you've got to do that stuff. Art is the same way, but yet the public school systems are just insist on squelching the creativity of the students and just teach to the test.
Well, we certainly do want to encourage students to be engaged while they're attending school, whether it's a public school, private school, or a homeschool situation, because that's going to definitely lead to them learning and developing those skills that will help them be successful once they leave the classroom.
Is this approach applicable to every subject? I mean, if we're talking about history, would you have critical thinking in history?
Absolutely. Critical thinking is a skill that is utilized in every single course, and although this particular Cambridge Global Perspectives is designed to be a course taught over a 2-year period, because it's followed up by a very in-depth research paper that a student would write, during the first year, these skills that they're learning and the activities that they're engaging in during their investigation process and development of critical thinking is then applied in all of their different subject classes. And teachers will tell you at these schools that are in, like the biology class, for example, they know when a student's had this course, because all of a sudden those students are the ones that are piping up all the time. Oh,
really?
Well, what about this perspective? And has anybody thought about that? And who actually wrote this particular idea? And where did this come from?
That sounds like me.
Very inquisitive.
I'm always the one saying, "Wait a minute, what would happen if this happened?"
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So I think an important thing right now, because Rob and I might have a million questions about the whole course, what's it called again, core message?
Global Perspective.
Thank you. But the event next week needs to be talked about a little bit. Who's going to be speaking? What will the person who attends this be experiencing? What do they get besides lunch?
Yeah.
That's going to be a really good lunch, Larry. You and Robin, come on down.
Yeah, we'll pretend we're teachers.
Yeah.
That's okay. You're welcome. It doesn't matter if you're
It might improve our interview
skills.
skills. It'll improve our interview
That's
skills.
right.
Absolutely. Well, the neat thing is that we're actually going to have with us the person who is pretty much in charge of this whole subject and the delivery of this subject from Cambridge. She's going to be joining us. Carol Woe is her name, and we're also going to have some people that are actually in the university admissions offices. We'll have John Barnhill from FSU. He'll be joining us there to talk about how universities are looking at students that are coming in with these skills or the lack thereof. And we will also have Christoph Gutentag, who is the Dean of Admissions at Duke University. He will be joining us via a remote link, and we will have some people there from a school in Brevard County, a teacher who's taught global perspectives for 3 years now, along with some of the students that have been through this to share some of the work that they've actually done during that time. We're going to have Bob Monson, who's at the Teachers College in New York, and that's the Columbia University Teachers College, He'll be there to talk about how this can actually develop teacher skills in delivering critical thinking skills and developing those things within the students. So we have a wide variety. I'll be there, as will another Cambridge representative named Ariel Foster. So we'll all be there to share different attributes of the Cambridge Perspectives program and model it, and some of the participants will get to go through some of these activities themselves as well.
Okay, so for the listeners who are interested in showing up, and this is primarily for teachers and I guess all kinds of teachers. Could be a homeschool teacher, right? Mm-hmm. Could be a mom.
It could be anybody.
It's at the Renaissance Orlando Hotel. Is it near SeaWorld? Right near SeaWorld?
Yes, it is. That's correct.
It's from 8:30 till 2. It's free, and the website, and I went to it, it's cambridgegp.org, and I'm sure Robin will put that on the Facebook page so that everybody can get it real easily.
Thank you.
It's very interesting that you're having somebody there from the different colleges like FSU, and that this is something that the admissions offices look for when they're admitting a student, because it's really getting very competitive now for students to enter college, what with their scholarships, their volunteer hours, and now something like that. This should really be looked at for each individual student and not till their senior year in high school.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, Robin. And it's not just a matter of giving a student a competitive edge in the application process. I think just as, if not more important, is the ability of a student to prepare themselves for success when they get there. A lot of what they're being asked to do at university level includes critical thinking, analysis of lots of different sources of information out there, and doing extended writing and research. So those are all skills that the universities really would like to see students arrive with and be able to be engaged with the instructional process.
What is your opinion on the people who have gone to school, like when Larry and I went to school in the 60s, we had no computers, nothing like that. We had to do it all in our head or with slide rules. When people say they shouldn't have those computers and electronic devices in school, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a really interesting question because Cambridge, as you know, has been around a while. They were founded in 1209. And when they have
that's for sure.
they actually advise that when mathematics instruction takes place, they have some things that have to be done using what we call mental math. There are actually parts all the way through the high school curriculum and assessment program that students are not allowed to use calculators on. It's not to say they shouldn't use them. It's just we believe it's important that they understand the process and the meaning behind what a calculator is crunching out for them, in addition to using the tools of technology. So my opinion is that it's important that students be able to think and understand the theory and what the reasoning is for why you're doing certain things mathematically on a computer or a calculator.
You know, when I asked you the question earlier about applying critical thinking to history, the reason I was asking that is because I was thinking, and maybe I was wrong in thinking so, but history is factual. You can't really change anything about it, and so the critical thinking part. In other words, I could see critical thinking with things you're working on now, the future, developing things, but the stuff in the past. But
Oh, let's talk about history for a minute, Larry.
Okay, good. Because I actually want to. I'm going to also bring into this.
Let's talk about history, shall we?
All right, go ahead. I want to tell you something about music too that occurred to me as I was listening to you.
Yeah. Well, let me just share this with you, if I may. You're right. History is comprised of an awful lot of dates and events. You're absolutely right about that. But history is also not only about the dates and the events, but the impact that those events had on society. Not only right then, but in the future of that society.
Yeah, right.
So really what you're trying to do when you're talking about history is analyze not only what happened, but why it happened, and how did it impact the current situation and the situation of those people in the future. Not only within their own local area, but within their world that they live in. And that can mean their country, it can mean international, depending on the topic you're talking about. So Cambridge would not really ever ask you a question about what happened in 1865. They would ask you, how did the events of 1865, or how far did the events of 1865 support the change that occurred in society? That's the question
big
Cambridge
difference,
would ask.
yeah.
Fascinating.
You have to know what happened in 1865, understand,
That's
to
great.
address that question, but they're not going to ask you what happened in 1865.
Well, and I appreciate you saying it that way. That was a great illustration, by the way. But as I was listening to you, I was actually understanding the history part because I compared it to music, which is the subject I probably know a little bit about. And when you speak to a classical musician, it's all about what's written on the paper. When you speak to like a jazz musician who can improvise very well, it's all about taking what's on the paper and then elaborating on it.
Exactly.
You almost don't even stick to the paper. And I've often thought that they could both learn from each other. Like if the jazz musician would respect those notes a little bit more, and if the classical musician would understand that, adding your own little pizzazz or whatever every now and then wouldn't hurt either. I don't know. Probably some musicians out there disagreeing with both things I said, but
I like it.
But I'm calling in a minute, Larry.
but I guess as far as just trying to understand critical thinking, that's how I understood it with the history. But you actually illustrated it better than that. So.
Well, great. I'm glad that you like the illustration.
No, you are
As a former social studies teacher.
you are giving people a different perspective on the world of learning, because even when we're out of school, everybody should have open minds and look at everything with critical thinking, I think. And there's nothing wrong with that now that I'm less confused about what it is. This is interesting.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear the people who don't like it, though. Because I don't know. I mean, it seems like some of the meetings that were being held were angry people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's too bad.
They would call up and we want to talk about Common Core.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that? What is Common Core? Now I understand it. Well, at least I understand a little bit. Do you know what I really think, though, is that when you teach students the way you just described it, and you have teachers who ask questions that way, that makes for a better experience for everybody.
I agree. Absolutely. And that's what this is all about, is trying to help students learn how to ask the right questions and to start the conversation and be engaged and have a passion to know more and to know how to go out and get that information and decide if it's valid information or not.
Well, if you're a teacher and next Tuesday you can take the day off, call a substitute up or something.
That's right.
Or an administrator or something. SeaWorld at the Renaissance Orlando next week, Tuesday, a week from today. What's that, the 10th?
Yes.
8:30 till 2. Go to cambridgegp.org. If you can't write that down, call us up. We'll be glad to repeat it on the phone. And also go to Facebook. Robin will have it on Facebook within an hour and a half or so.
Excellent.
Sherry, that was a great... I learned so much in just a little bit.
Well, I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to share information about our upcoming event. Thank you so much for making time for us to speak with you both today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you again.
So now I not only will remember your name, which is the factual part of this, I'll also remember the implications of this conversation and how it changed me.
Wonderful.
Sherry, thank you so much for being on the air with us. And you're already in Orlando, right? You're in Panama City.
No, I'm in Panama City. I was actually born and raised in Orlando.
So have fun in your hometown then when you go back.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate
Great
it.
interview.
Thanks so much.
Great stuff. We'll take a little break and be right back.
Habitat for Humanity of Marion County is a ministry dedicated to improving lives by providing affordable and decent housing. Help them help others by visiting the Habitat for Humanity Ocala home store on Northwest 27th Avenue. To schedule a donation, give them a call and they'll come and pick it up. For more information, visit habitatocala.org. Habitat for Humanity of Marion County, building homes, building hope, building community.
Alice,
Yes, George?
I'm going to Devon's Self-Storage.
You mean Devon's on 200 across from Hobby Lobby?
Yes, you know I have my own code to get in, and if I have a question, I just call 873-0777.
Didn't you just go there last night?
Well, yes, they're open late.
Didn't you go Christmas shopping this weekend?
Yes,
Then you went to Devon's Self-Storage?
yes.
George, what are you up to?
Bye.
George!
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. The Polar Express is now on track to hit 25 states this week, bringing the coldest air in 16 years to most of the nation. The Northwest and Midwest from California to Phoenix are feeling it first starting today. Later this week, the cold wave will reach as far south as the Gulf Coast. A veteran train operator in New York is due to be questioned today about why his train was doing 82 miles an hour, then suddenly braked just before derailing. American students did not get good grades on a global exam in math, science, and reading. They scored below the international average on all three and cracked the top 20 only in one subject, reading. Students in Shanghai, Singapore, and Hong Kong got top ratings. Investigators have ruled out drag racing as a factor in the fatal car crash of Fast and Furious star Paul Walker. Co-star Vin Diesel was among those attending a vigil at the crash site. The mystery barges Google has been building off San Francisco, LA, and New York are targeted to become floating retail stores to sell Google Glass, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. The big launch is next year. This is ABC News.
Gastric bypass, no surgery.